guys, welcome back to Kaylee and Beans Books. I'm Brittany, and this is another book miss video. So I'm going to be doing my top 10 books of 2019, starting from number 10, working my way to number 1 with a couple honorable mentions. So starting off with my honorable mentions, I've got The Hating Game by Sally Thorne, and these aren't in any particular order. These are just books I really enjoyed this year that didn't really quite make it to my top 10, just based on an entertainment value and how really in-depth I got with the characters. So I really enjoyed The Hating Game, but not top 10 worthy. Same goes with Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. I really enjoyed this story, but just not enough to make the top 10. And then I also did the finale of the Fallen Isles trilogy, When She Reigns, by Jodi Meadows. This series is really good. I do recommend this, but there are some content warnings on abuse and anxiety with this series, but I highly recommend it. And then finally, honorable mention, The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. I have yet to finish this series, but I really enjoyed the first one, so I can't wait to dive into the final two. I just haven't had the chance, and there's a couple other books ahead of those. Starting with number 10, I've got Girl in Pieces by Kathleen Glasgow. I really enjoyed this story. It's an intense story though. If you haven't read it, if you don't know anything about this story, it follows Charlotte. She goes by Charlie, and she's kind of finding herself. She's 17 years old, but she struggled with depression and self-harm. And the story actually starts off with her being in a mental health institution. There's a lot that goes on in this story, but I really enjoyed it. It actually kind of kickstarted me reading this year, so I just wanted to give credit where credit is due with me getting back into reading. So I really enjoyed this book, and it was intense at times, and I think that's one thing that really stood out to me, was making it that made it a top 10 book. Next, in number 9, I've got Aurora Rising by Amie Kaufman and Kristoff. This is the start of a series, and it follows 5 space cadets after their graduation, and they become this team that fights crime intergalactically. And they've stumbled across Aurora, who's been pretty much asleep for about 200 years, I believe. And they kind of go through and they kind of get thrown into this war that they had no idea that was happening. And it just kind of follows the different perspectives of 6 different characters. And it kind of left off at a big cliffhanger. So I'm really excited for the second one. I believe that comes out in May or June of 2020. So number 8, I've got Four Dead Queens by Astrid Scholte. This follows Carolee, who is 17 years old, and she's a well-known thief in her little village area. And there are a couple of different quadrants. There are 4 different quadrants that is ruled by a different queen. And these queens are raised in their quadrant until they come of age to rule as the queen. And they live by these set of rules. So there's 10 rules, one including they can't fall in love, and another being they can't have a husband, but they must produce an heir. So there are these suitors that come in and pretty much try to get these queens pregnant so they can produce an heir, and only women can be heirs. So they have to have a daughter, hence the queens. Where Carolee comes into play is she steals this important package, and there are these little microchips that were developed in one of the quadrants that allows people to kind of see these memories. However, these memories that she consumes are of the deaths of the queens. So she has to kind of jump and maneuver, trying to figure out who's killing the queens, why they're being killed, and kind of solve this mystery around it, along with action, and there's a little bit of a budding romance in it. I just really enjoyed how unique the story was, getting the perspective of the queens and Carolee and another character towards the end, which was really interesting. Overall, I really enjoyed this story. Kind of changing gears with my number 7 pick is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I really enjoyed this book. This was one of the this was the second adult romance that I read. I really enjoyed the characters. I enjoyed the romance. It isn't enemies to lovers. I enjoyed the drama. It's not necessarily drama between the two characters on a miscommunication like a lot of the adult romances and contemporaries are. It was actually based on something completely different, which I thought was really interesting. I really enjoyed being able to just kind of dive into their relationship and kind of see how they get along with each other and how they didn't get along with each other and how their relationship developed. So I really enjoyed the Unhoneymooners and look forward to reading more books by Christina Lauren. Number 6 is another contemporary, A Dress for the Wicked by Autumn Krause. This follows Emma as she enters a very prestigious dress making competition, and it's kind of set in a Victorian age. It gave me like France and London vibes. Really enjoyed the story. She's from a poor province, and she's kind of taken in and accepted into the competition as a publicity stunt for the head of the house, as they're trying to appeal to the poorer audience. So it follows Emma as she's trying to maneuver, making these elaborate designs and elaborate dresses, while trying to be friends with the girls in the house and try to balance those relationships along with being the publicity stunt, being in front of the cameras and getting that media attention that she didn't sign up for. She signed up to be a designer, and she wasn't getting the opportunity she wanted, so she starts making a plot to become her, she starts a plot to create her own line, which is really interesting, and it follows a couple of the other relationships with the girls, and there's even a little bit of a romance in there too. I feel like every book on my top 10 has at least one romance in there, but I really enjoyed this story, and it really reminded me of Project Runway in a way. So if you're looking for something kind of fun and unique, I definitely check this book out. And now for top 5. So number 5, Scythe by Neal Shusterman. I seriously am so mad at myself for taking so long and getting into this series. Absolutely love this book. It's so unique. I really loved just the way the world was built. You follow 2 young adults, and in their world, it's set in a couple hundred years in the future, and society's kind of wiped out natural death, natural disease. So the way people die, they're chosen by these sides, and they choose how you die and when you die. Some of the sides are pretty methodical with it. They research, they kind of take into the statistics from the mortal age. So for example, the age we live in right now, kind of taking statistics, like one follows teenage drunk drivers, or old age comes into play. Some are a little random with theirs. They just kind of choose who and when and why based on random feelings. They do have to abide by these certain rules. One being there's ethnicity breakdowns. It's not as like cut and dry as we're used to. The race statistics are completely different than what we're used to now. It's not necessarily, African Americans, whites, Mexicans, things like that. They divide the ethnicities differently, which I thought was really interesting and really unique. Really enjoyed that aspect. There is a group of sides that do these mask gleanings, which you follow, and is really intense. So kind of like from the mortal age, plane accidents. They would board a plane and glean everybody on board. And if you escape or try to attack a Scythe, your whole family is killed. So you pretty much have to let it happen. When it's your time, it's your time. And the 2 characters you follow are apprentices to these Scythes, and they're trying to come up with their own way around the world, and both of them really didn't want to be chosen. It's not necessarily that they don't agree with the teachings and the ways of the Scythe, they just don't want to be in charge of it. They don't want to be the bringers of death, to put it lightly. It's really interesting. I really enjoyed the buildup of the story, the character development. It's really intense at times, and I really enjoyed it. Overall, I can't wait to continue on this story. On with the story. with Thunderhead and the Toll. Number 4, Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin. I won't go too in detail with this one. Callie and I actually did a reaction video to this where we break down the synopsis. We kind of dive into what we liked, what we disliked, and spoilers. So if you want to check out that, it'll be linked below. This I read during our fall readathon in October. It's so good. I really love this story. It was definitely worth the hype. I really was worried going into it that it wasn't going to live up to the hype and what I put it, like the pedestal I put it on, but it definitely is. I really enjoyed the beginning to the end, everything in between, and I'm really excited for the sequel that comes out next summer. So number 3, I've got Supernova by Marissa Meyer. This is the epic finale of the Renegade series. For those of you out there that haven't read the Renegade series, it follows Adrian, who is a renegade. He is the stereotypical superhero, and he's on foot patrol for the Renegade Council. So there's a group of superheroes that they're kind of broken down into these teams, and they're on patrol looking for prodigies who are other people with superpowers that don't necessarily fall into the good guy, bad guy. They just kind of live their lives. They look for crime within that community with the regular people, and they just kind of try to keep peace. And then on the other side, we have the anarchists. So we follow Nova on the other side, who is an anarchist, and she has infiltrated the Renegades Council, the group, to try to get down to kind of destroy them from the inside out. She was raised on this idea that they were the bad guys and she was part of the good guys. So it just follows the conclusion of everything. Everything is revealed. Everything ends in a perfect little bow, but there is a little bit of a cliffhanger in the epilogue. Part of me feels like we're going to get more in the future. I really hope so. If you have not read the Renegade series, I highly recommend it. All 3 books are out. All 3 are on my shelf. I definitely recommend this book. Number 2, we've got Illuminae by Amie Kaufman and J. Kristoff. We read this as our first book of the month book, and we chose it based on the uniqueness. So if you haven't heard of the Illuminae or files and you haven't picked them up at all, it is a sci-fi. It is based way into the future, and it isn't written in the typical novel form. It's written in these file forms. So we've got video logs, we've got instant messaging logs, text messaging logs. We even get some of the computer thoughts, which is really interesting. We follow these characters as they're trying to abandon their home, and there's a virus that people are contracting, and there's a lot of death, there's a lot of action, there's betrayal, there's rekindling of an old romance, and all written out in this really intense format that I really enjoyed. I was a little nervous about it just because it is so left field than what I'm used to reading, but I love the entire series. All of it is definitely, if I could put all 3 books I would on my top 10, but I figured I'd pick my favorite, which was the first one, to throw in there, and my number 2. So my top book of 2019 is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. I absolutely loved this story. I loved the beginning to the end. I love the characters. I love the character development. I loved the relationships between the main character and her parents and her siblings. It was just so well done. I love the way I was able to connect to my little sister while I was reading this book. For those of you who don't know, Eliza and Her Monsters follows Eliza as goes through her senior year of high school. And in reality, she's a very shy person. She struggles with social anxiety. But online, she's Lady Constellation. She writes a very popular webcomic called Monster at Sea. And she actually has a fan website ran by a group of people that she actually meets in real life when Wallace, one of the admins, actually transfers to her school, start becoming friends. He tells Eliza his secret right away. She knows who he is in person and online, like she knows everything, but she keeps her identity secret to him for pretty much the entire story. The way it's revealed is very different. I wasn't expecting it. And there's a lot discussed in this book. We see depression and social anxiety and just the aftermath of major events in people's lives. Why I say connect to my little sister with this book is that she also suffers from social anxiety, and it's one of those things where I don't really understand. I'm a very social person. I love interacting with new people. I get along great. I'm very outgoing. So it's really hard for me to kind of understand where people are coming from when they say they have social anxiety. So reading Eliza and Her Monsters really helped me kind of understand where people are coming from, which helped me connect to my little sister in a way, and I really enjoyed that. I loved every second of this book, even the frustrating moments. It was definitely the top book of 2019 that I've read. So I definitely recommend checking out Eliza and Her Monsters if you haven't already. All right, so that's my top 10 for 2019. I do have my top contemporary or my contemporary wrap up, which can be linked below. You can definitely check that out, and be sure to check out Callie and Beans, their top 19 of 2019. We'll be doing more videos, of course, during Bookmas. We'll be posting every day until December 24th. Be sure to click the little bell icon. You'll be notified when we post new videos, and then be sure to like and comment on this video. I'd love to hear what books you've read this year that were your absolute favorites. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree with my top 10. That's fine. I'd love to hear your recommendations based on my top 10. I'm slowly but surely compiling my TBR for 2020, so I'd love to hear some recommendations. And be sure to follow us on Instagram. Our joint and individual accounts will be linked below, as well as our Goodreads. Until tomorrow, bye!